Number of bankruptcies of Russian citizens is growing fast. And consumer borrowing is growing fast too. Auto industry financial problems are deepening. V-Day celebrations are getting canceled all over the country. Airfare is up 25%, and that's just in the first quarter. The city of Kurgan is underwater now. Books are getting banned in the country. And the biggest news of the week, the age of children allowed to work at the war factories will be lowered to 14 years old. Welcome to another crazy Friday Russian news update. Has been so many crazy Russian news this week that I had to leave many out. Otherwise, this video would be way too long. Howdy, friends. My name is Konstantin, and as usual, welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Welcome to Fridays. I give you crazy news updates straight out of the mad circus that Russia has become. First things first. There is no such absurdity that could not be realized in Russia these days. Remember that. And before I start the news, as usual, there's a little joke for you. A Russian walks into a bar. Unlucky for him. I guess because in Putin's Russia, you just don't walk into bars. Bars walk into you. Let me start with economy news first. There's quite a few of them. All are important, and most of them are fairly crazy. The number of out-of-court bankruptcies in Russia has increased dramatically after the procedure became available to retirees. In the first quarter of 2024, almost 12.7 thousand out-of-court bankruptcies procedures were initiated, and that's 5 times more than in the first quarter of 2023. 5 times more. 1 year ago was 2,500. Now it's 12.7 thousand. The data is official, comes straight from the Unified Federal Register of Bankruptcy Information. That's basically black or white, and that's there. That's real. And more than half, 52% out of the court bankruptcies cases were initiated in this first quarter of 2024 were those of the retirees, the pensioners, as they called in Russia. 52%, more than half. For them, the out-of-court bankruptcy procedure has been made available since November 2023. So what does this news tell us? I guess everything is going so much according to the plan that Russian retirees are running to the courts to declare themselves bankrupt as soon as simplified procedure introduced. The next news is from the Central Bank of Russia. Here's some fresh statistics for you. According to the Central Bank, in March, the dynamics of consumer lending became unhealthy. When the number of unsecured loans grows like a snowball, that's called unhealthy. But that was in March. Now it is April. In March, it was merely unhealthy, and now in April, the consumer lending dynamics are obscene. Loan issuing for this month, 277 billion rubles, that's plus 2%. And if compared first quarters of 2023 and 2024, well, judge for yourself. In the first quarter of 2024, there were 528 billion rubles of loans. In the first quarter of 2023, a year ago, they were 297 billion rubles issued in loans. 528 billion this year, first quarter, 297 billion last year. That's 1.8 times more loans issued in the first quarter of 2024. If you want to know how a banking crisis is cooked, you are seeing it right now. This is its face. Just look at Russia. The bubble is here. In the next stage, the bubble will burst, and the next stage of will come imminent, and it's coming soon. And you know what? Central bank, oh boy, it's very worried, because Central Bank of Russia will be bailing the commercial banks out, and that's not going to be happy. It's going to be hit very hard. And guess who will be blamed a great deal? Yes, the Central Bank. Another news comes from Russian large truck manufacturer, automaker, KAMAZ. It's the only Russian company producing more or less competitive large trucks. You know, just like this one on the picture. This company, this plant has been since mid-70s, and it's been producing one model, which is this. And it's pretty widespread in Russia. That's the only large truck manufactured in Russia. Well, the net profit of KAMAZ automaker in the first quarter of 2024 decreased sixfold compared to the same period of 2023. Amounted to 1.4 billion rubles. That's around $15 million. Now, that's for a company that employs 33,500 people. That enjoyed much higher net profits. Now it's just $15 million. Again, with leading market position, with so many KAMAZ trucks are bought by armed forces now, it's called the government order, okay? That's where the most trucks are going to. Then its net profit has fallen by 6 times. That's 600% to mere $15 million. Now, KAMAZ is a very good example of current state of affairs of Russian car making industry. Judge for yourself. The next news is crazy. Russian electronics manufacturers may begin to receive subsidies from Russian government, basically from Russian taxpayers. They need compensations because there's a big difference in cost between domestic and Chinese-made electronic devices. Russian devices cost so much more, and the Chinese cost so much less. Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade is analyzing the situation and thinking. Now, there are many crazy news coming out of Russia these days, but this one is really out there. Russian manufacturers manufacture things at high cost, sell them at prices lower than costs, and the government covers the difference. They manufacture something that is expensive, costs more than Chinese. They sell at the price less than it costs them to manufacture, and the government covers the difference straight out of taxpayers' pockets. I have one question. Why? Remember what I said in the beginning? There's no such absurdity that could not be realized in Russia these days. Russia had to start the war with Ukraine to get this. The next news is of airlines. Economy class air tickets have risen in price by 25% since this January. And it's just 3 months and it's just 1 quarter. 25%. That's official data, and I believe it. And you know what? It's easily checked when you buy air tickets online. You go and see the price. I know the air ticket prices quite well because, I buy them all the time. I fly my mom back and forth. Sometimes my family goes places and, we fly. So I know it has been a 25% rise. Now, you can say anything you want, how everything is great in Russia, how Russian economy is growing by 3.6% every year, how Russia has withstood the international sanctions brilliantly, etc. But here's the hard truth for you. When you go and buy air travel tickets, you pay 25% more compared to this past December, just 4 months ago. That's the truth, and it cannot be altered or sugar-coated. And the next news comes from under the pillows of Russian citizens. That's where they keep their money, their cash. In the West, you might say from under the mattresses. I don't know which is right. Pick whatever you like. The Central Bank of Russia just released the data that in the last 12 months, the amount of cash in the hands of Russian citizens increased by 12% to 18.4 trillion rubles. That shows that the amount of trust to Russian commercial banks is diminishing. And for a very good reason. Guess what? At least some Russians are smart. Enough of the economic news. Russia is much bigger than its economy. It has many other things. The next news is a little aquatic. The city of Kurgan, located in the southern Urals mountains, is almost completely underwater now. Oops, check this right here. This is a very fresh, recent footage. I believe it was done earlier today in Russia. And this is how Kurgan is looking like. Not much is said and shown in the Russian news, but I'm showing you the truth here. That's the footage. A picture cannot lie. It's pretty much hard, cold, wet truth here. The reason for flooding? Both natural, this is the leap year, the El Nino year. Floodings like that happen every 4 years or so in Russia. And also it's man-made. The authorities knew that the flooding was going to be bad this year, and they did nothing. I completely understand. Russia is waging the war in Ukraine, and it's been going on for 26 months now. The authorities have other goals, for example, to mobilize as many people as possible and send them to the front lines to provide more rockets and armor. The death stuff that kills Ukrainians at the front lines. All those peaceful things like that. This what happens again. Check this out. This what happens when local residents' safety isn't a priority. Take a good look. But let's move to another Russian city called Tyumen. Local residents of a village called Pakhomov near Tyumen, not too far, decided to protect themselves and their properties. So they built a small dam by themselves using bags of clay and sand which they purchased. A good example of good citizenship, right? Citizens taking matters into their own hands and protecting themselves for their own money, of course, right? Wrong! The authorities came, to be exact, the head of the local office of the Ministry of Emergency Situations came and demanded that the residents disassemble what they built. He gave no reason, and he threatened with legal actions, most likely real prison time, according to the locals. In a normal country, in a normal time, I'd say it's a crazy situation. People do the government's job to protect themselves. And after they do that job that the government's supposed to do, the government's supposed to protect them in the first place, and then the government comes in and threatens them. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But not in Putin's Russia. It's actually a reverse normal. It'd be strange to expect that the government would actually come in and actually help. All the good and all the bad must come from the state now. There's nothing but the state. A person should only patiently wait for his or her fate if he or she sees that she's about to drown, then no rescue attempts can be made because punishing or pardoning is the task of the state now. The worst sin is to take the initiative without permission from the state. Even it is a question of saving one's own life. Without permission and a signed certificate, it is forbidden to save oneself. If the state did not build a dam, it means that it should not have been done so. And the one who decided to engage in amateur activities is an extremist, interfering in the course of the history, defending Nazism, corrupted. That person is corrupted by the evil satanic West and collaborating with Ukraine. That dam that protected the houses of people, definitely collaborating with Ukraine. And this is the times that we're living in. The next news is sort of expected. This year, the Victory Day Parade and Бессмертный Полк, the Immortal Regiment March, will not be held in Crimea and other border regions. The governor of Kursk province announced the cancellation of commemorative processions, marches in the province. Instead, he suggested that the residents are to hang portraits of their relatives who fought in World War II in the windows of their houses or on their windows of their cars. The cancellation of the Victory Day Parade is also reported in Bryansk province. The Immortal Regiment March will take place in Voronezh region, but there will be no fireworks and celebration of May 9th. Victory Day events will also be cancelled in other provinces, and the Immortal Regiment campaign will be held online. More announcements of cancellations are to come from many other regions. You know, in the last 10 years or so, the V-Day celebration was given almost a cult-like significance. And now cancellations are all over Russia? I wonder what happened. I wonder why. Were V-Day celebration cancellations also part of the plan that is happening so magnificently in Russia now? Was it planned for Russia and Russian propaganda? Not a single word about these cancellations. A year before that, there was everything that the Russians lived for. Last year, same. This year, it's just canceled. Hey, no big deal. Let's move on. As if nothing happened. By the way, when I was making today's Crazy Friday news update, I had to select a few news out of 50 or so news. And I had to pick the best, the most significant. And if you want to get more news like that every day, not just wait until Friday, 9 news every day with my commentaries and analysis are made available for patrons at patreon.com. So if you want to become an expert on what's happening in Russia, sign up, become a patron, and you'll get everything you need to know about today's Russia. Consider, so far the feedback has been positive. The next news comes from all over Russian schools. Oh boy. On the craziness scale from 1 to 10, this news stands somewhere around 14. This week, a new educational event was held in hundreds of schools all over Russia. And this is how it looked like. Please tell me if you know what it is. If you don't know, don't look at me, because I don't know either. This is how the authorities explained it. Russian school children are being put on their knees to show remembrance of the genocide of the Soviet people. And also, lessons on this topic are taught simultaneously. Children are told how the Nazis destroyed the Soviet people in World War II and how they want to destroy Russian people now. First graders participate in this event as well. You know how glad I am that my son doesn't attend Russian school anymore? And in the past, folks, I wanted Michael to attend school, Russian school, at least for a few years, just for that, to get Russian culture, to grow up with it, to be just like me. And now, you can't even imagine how happy I am that he doesn't. How did everything change so much and so quick? To me, this is my personal tragedy. Country's just gone to hell. You know, if they did something like that when I was growing up and while I was attending school, if they put us on our knees, you know, oh boy, our parents would come and the teachers wouldn't like what would follow. And now everyone is fine with that. How did everything change so much so quick? The next news smells like old dusty book, and it burns like Fahrenheit 451. All over the country, books about Stalin, repressions, and criticism of the USSR are being removed from school curriculums. The dissident authors were replaced by Putin's confessors. Several famous books all of a sudden are missing from school curriculum grades 10 and 11. Those very same books were not allowed to be published before Perestroika by Soviet censors. And the books include The Life and the Fate by Vasily Grossman, where Stalin's camps were compared to Nazis' concentration camps and the tortures of the KGB were compared to the tortures of the Gestapo. The story The House on the Embankment, Дом на набережной, by Yuri Trifonov. That story is about the inhabitants of an elite government residence house. Also, they all became victims of repressions. That's a very famous story in Russia. This house is still there. It's dark, gray, gloomy, and it's right across the river from the Kremlin, right on the embankment. Дом на набережной. Then the next book is The Kolymá Stories by Varlam Shalamov, about the life of a prisoner in Gulag. The novel Amon-Ra by Viktor Pelevin, where the Soviet cult of cosmonauts is ridiculed, and poems by Dmitry Prigov, who was iconic in the USSR and some as that, who was very, very liked in Russia, and in his poems, he's very ironic and very skeptical about communism. Earlier, some foreign literature, some foreign books disappeared from schools. And I'm going to tell you now in a second, but I think you guess. If I told you, guess what foreign books they took out, two foreign books they took out of all schools in Russia. You take a wild guess. What do you think? Of course, 1984 by George Orwell and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And also the third book, Transformation by Franz Kafka. I know them by heart. Well, at least the first two ones. But Transformation, I think I read a long time ago. I don't have recollection of that. But don't have a memory. But well, they did that for a good reason, because people who have read 1984 and The Brave New World, they ask questions. Even if you don't travel outside Russia much, when you read a book, you travel inside your head. You travel into that world of that book that you read, and you start thinking critically, at least somewhat. And they're cleaning up the libraries, my friends. The next stage, what? They're going to burn books in front of everyone? Actually would not surprise me. No worries. Instead, there is a new book called The Death of the Empire, the Russian lesson, has been added and made obligatory to read in Russian schools, and it's written by Metropolite Pope Tikhon Shevkunov, who is considered Putin's confessor. Shevkunov calls Stalin a great statesman. I was thinking, when I was before the stream, what do I say about that? How do I can't say anything. I can do the face palm right now. Ugh. Face palm, double face palm. I don't know what to tell you. Russia is actually back to the USSR. And gosh, how fast it happened. I wonder, Russians, are you liking it? You wanted it. Are you liking it? What kind of people are you? Okay, before moving to the last news, I'd like to ask you a favor. Let me know what you think of this news selection. Please let me know down below in the comments. Do you like them? Anything you liked in particular more? Or let's say perhaps something you didn't like? Please let me know in the comments. I appreciate that very much. Feedback is hugely important for me. Feedback is everything. Feedback steers me into the right direction, so please let me know. And the last news of the day comes from, again, the entire great Mother Russia. You see, Mother Russia has become the new land of opportunity. Forget about America. Forget about the old world. Forget about everything. America, what else? I don't know. What else is the land of opportunity? What? Forget about that. I don't know what. All people in Russia now, big and small, young and old, have opportunities. And let me tell you a few stories of such opportunities, and I think you will be amazed. I'll start with the record bribe. Former employees of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, in other words, it's called high-ranked federal policemen, were accused of receiving a record bribe of 5 billion rubles. That's around $55 million. They were accused, charged, and, no, not arrested. Because they disappeared. They left Russia and vanished into this big, brave world without a trace. Georgy Satyukov, an ex-employee of the most secret divisions of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Bureau of Special Technical Measures, the department that provides secure communication inside the federal police and is responsible for investigations of information crimes. That fellow was accused of accepting a bribe of 5 billion rubles, and that's a record bribe for Russian federal police. The previous record was 4 times less. Peanuts compared to, 5 billion. The previous record bribe was 1.4 billion rubles, or about $16 million. And the previous guy who accepted the bribe, he was sentenced to 16 years in prison, now serving. I doubt he will be serving entire 16 years. I mean, $16 million can buy you a quick and easy way out of prison. Satyukov, this guy who the record briber headed the third department for investigating financial and bank crimes using informational technology. That's like secret department. What was his crime? Accepting 5 billion rubles. How did it happen? Imagine $55 million. Imagine $55 million. It's just like 2 suitcases full of money, full of $100 bills. Anyway, he extorted $55 million from WEX, formerly BTC, a cryptocurrency exchange. He offered patronage, for $55 million. And I guess the, exchange paid him $55 million. They gave them the bribe, according to the investigators. And the bribe was transferred in the form of cryptocurrency that is nearly impossible to trace. Both Satyukov and another policeman, his assistant and his employee, his last name is Sokolov, they left Russia. How they could leave Russia, that's a big question. It's not indicated in the investigation because it's a huge white spot, okay? Now, both fellows, they were both high-ranked Russian policemen. Then they had access to top secret information, confidential, called Государственная тайна, the state secret. And if you are holder of the state secret, you cannot leave country. You submit your passport to special KGB people who trace everyone who has access to these great secrets. But they just simply left Russia. I guess it's fairly easy for a high-ranked cop, especially if he has $55 million in his pocket. It's easy for him to leave Russia. According to one of the versions right now, the fugitives may have resided in Dubai, where Sokolov has apartment in the 800-meter Burj Khalifa tower, the tallest building in the world. Hey, they even know where his apartment is. So, who would tell me that Russia isn't the land of opportunity for the policemen? $55 million. Where else can you get a pension like that? Definitely the land of opportunity. Hey, some more on bribes. During the 2 years of war, bribes were almost 1.5 times more common in Russia. The drivers for corruption were the armed forces and the military-industrial complex. That's according to Transparency Foundation reporting. In a war country, the amount of bribes and their number of are growing. The bribes in size and the number of bribes are growing. The trend has been continuing for the 3rd year in a row. And if we compare the number of registered crimes in January through and February 2022, 2023, and 2024, we will see a great increase. The amount of bribes increased and the number of bribes increased. In 2024, compared to 2023, the last year, the amount of bribes were 84% more. So there were 84 more episodes. Please forgive me, 40% more bribes and 84% more cases of mediating bribes, attempting bribes. At the same time, the number of cases of petty bribery, small time, has decreased for one simple reason: the prices have increased. And they count up to 10,000 rubles. Below 10,000 rubles, $100, it's a petty crime. Became less of them because the prices simply have come up and the inflation is up. The average Russian bribe, according to the authorities, the prosecutor's office, it's around 500,000 rubles or $5,000. Again, the armed forces and the military-industrial complex are becoming drivers for corruption due to the lack of transparency, and I'm pretty sure that they have many opportunities there. To them, Russia is definitely the land of opportunity. Corruption in the military sector is ahead of the general statistics for the country, and in the military sector it is several times higher, said Ilya Shumanov, the head of the Russian Transparency Foundation. Let's hear another story of opportunities. Hey, opportunities galore today. In Primorsky Krai, the far easternmost province of Russia, that is right next to the Pacific, a married couple convinced a man to sign up to go to the war in Ukraine. Of course, he was killed, and let me give you more details. It goes like this. In June 2023, the couple offered a 46-year-old man, their acquaintance, the next-door neighbor, they offered to voluntarily sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation and go to war. They actually convinced him. No one knows how, but perhaps they did some drinking with him, perhaps they were very convincing. Somehow they made him join the military forces and to go to war. And at the same time, knowing for certain, or almost for certain, that the man had no relatives, they conceived him to enter into a fictional marriage with a 63-year-old woman in order to receive payments in case of injury or death. I understand what the couple was thinking, but I really don't understand what the guy himself was thinking. What was his profit? What was he getting from this deal? Anyway, the guy did not last long. He, in October 2023, just a couple months after he joined, he was killed. Then the couple opened a bank account in the name of this fictitious wife and linked it to their phone. And after transferring the death money into the account, and that was around 8 million rubles, $85,000 or so, the widow withdrew it from ATM in cash and gave it to the organizers of this scheme. You know, the war made possible this situation, but the war also made possible another situation, and crooks forgot about it. The war never changes, you know, and the war always does different ugly things. The couple bragged of how rich they became, and another neighbor wrote a denunciation letter to a local attorney general's office, and he attracted the attention of the authorities to this couple. And the crime was noticed, and it didn't take long to solve it. The 63-year-old fictitious widow told everything that she knew to the investigators. The crime solved, but the mystery remains. I wish we could trace the $85,000, the subject of the crime. Something is telling me that it's going to disappear in the vast corridors and offices of the prosecutors. The guys know, the officers know that the fellow victim did not have any family, and therefore there's no one to send that money to. And it's 85 grand. I mean, it's decent money. Someone might need it, you know, to have a good vacation in Italy, or perhaps to buy a small boat in Miami, or, go to Japan, you name it. No, not in Russia, of course. They don't spend in Russia. They make money in Russia. They earn. They spend someplace else in the evil West. After that, tell me that Russia is not the land of opportunities. It's just the opportunities in Russia favor the strong, the bold, and the criminal. Up until now, I was talking of opportunities mostly for Russian adults. But it's not fair. Children in today's Russia, in Putin's Russia, also get great opportunities. Yes, at least in Kazan. In Kazan province, for now, but I think the opportunities for children will spread throughout Russia. Tatarstan, the Tatarstan Republic, Kazan province, authorities from the province decided to attract children to work at military plants starting from the age of 14. The Tatarstan authorities plan to attract children of age 14 and up to work at the factories of the military-industrial complex, and this is what the new Regional Youth Employment Assistance Program prepared by the regional government says. According to the draft document, children aged 14 to 18 will be assigned, and their assignments will be simplified. They will be easily able to find employment, and the state will help them. And they will be allowed to work in factories in their free time. The authors of the program note that Tatarstan is experiencing a shortage of young workers, firstly due to the decrease in the birth rate in the 90s. There's a demographic crisis going on right now. And secondly, due to the fact that now young people increasingly, I quote, prefer studying at schools and receiving higher education in universities rather than going to work at factories, I unquote. In 2023, the Parliament of Tatarstan prepared amendments allowing children from the age of 16 and up to work in harmful and dangerous industries. For example, at Kamaz plant and at Alabuga Special Economic Zone, which is also located in Tatarstan. Russian federal legislation strictly forbids that. After widespread public criticism and outrage, the document was withdrawn from further consideration and it's actually been frozen right now. What an opportunity for children to do dangerous and unqualified labor at war factories. Fantastic land of opportunities. And how fast it happened. Folks, you know, if you're watching me out of Russia, if you've never been to Russia, if you live in a different country, I wish you never go through what we have gone in Russia. How fast it happened, how fast everything fell apart, right in front of my own eyes. I'm sitting here in awe, and it's just happening so quickly. You know, I'm told quite often here on YouTube, we wish the war is over soon, very soon, and you'll be able to go back to your country. How? How can I go back and live alongside people who make all this crazy, horrendous news a reality? How can I go and look at their faces? How can I go and live alongside them? How can I send my son Michael to school with these teachers who put first graders on their knees in these satanic cult-like rituals? I don't know about that. And that's it for the news update today. But if you want to see how we Russians live after leaving Russia for good, check out another video I made documenting our life in Uzbekistan. The link is right here.